And welcome back. And we're moving into our first conversation this morning with representatives of the Ministry of Agriculture. And we're going to be finding out more about a census they're about to undertake and its importance. We have with us on set Dwight Gillett, who is the Monitoring and Evaluation Officer with the Ministry of Agriculture. In the middle, we have Milagro Matus, who is the Policy Analyst, also with the Ministry of Agriculture. And on the end, we have Census Coordinator Clifford Martinez. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So, we're accustomed to talking to the Ministry of Agriculture about quite a number of things engaging farmers, but not so often about a census. So I want to find out just what the thinking is behind gathering this information and why it's important.
Well, Marlene, first of all, the Ministry of Agriculture is going through this reform right about now, to be able to make this this environment for the farmers, to create an enabling environment for the farmers. With the reform, then we have to consider legislation, market reform, and that of methodologies that we can implement or activities that we can implement to help us with climate resilience.
Yeah.
We need data in order to be able to make informed decisions.
Yeah.
So last 2 years, we developed this project to create a market Belize Agriculture Management Information System. The Belize Management Information System will be used to collect the data and store the data, analyze the data. The easiest and most efficient way to get the data into the system was through a census. And that is how we reached that point.
Yeah.
Probably Clifford could explain more about the census, but the agriculture information system will basically store farm registry, and production data.
Yeah. But what do we know? Before moving into the census, what's the level of knowledge as to what we know about where farmers are located, what type of produce is being produced, and things like that?
So agriculture can be divided into several divisions, differences. We have large producers, for example, and we have small producers. We have middle producers.
Yeah.
It's also separated into primary and secondary producers. Primary, we know about sugarcane, we know about citrus, we know about banana. And then secondary, we had pineapple, we had papaya being introduced. But overall, we know that farmers are vegetable production. When we talk about Belize, it's unique to that. And so Ms. Matus was right that we know already. We have conventional knowledge. We have that understanding that there's basic statistics out there. In fact, this would be the third census that we'll be doing, and it's a follow-up. We're at the period where it's just right for it to get done. It's a 10-year period, or 8-year period, depending on how fast you want to advance the goals of the country, the economical expression. But I believe it's one of those questions where, Dwight, maybe you could assist us best, because it's at the macro level that we want to understand the importance of it happening at the micro level, and that's where our strengths are at. Dwight would be the...
So getting back to the question, Marlene, that currently we have rudimentary systems of collecting data. We use the Excel sheets and so forth. And this is being collected by our extension officers. Our extension officers are in the different districts. We have an agricultural office in every district, and we have zones. We have 23 zones throughout the country, and extension officers are assigned to zones, and they normally collect data. Now, when it comes to larger data, then we have Ms. Matus' office, who would then collect from
the large farmers.
The large farmers, the large producers.
And cooperatives, associations, so we get information from them.
So then she will gather that information from citrus growers, from the banana growers, from sugarcane, and then gather that data and discuss it with SIB and as well as the Central Bank of Belize, and then they will determine economic outlook for the country over the year.
What is the scale of this undertaking? Normally when we think of census, we know it's a countrywide consultation process.
Yeah,
and in this
self-reporting as well.
Yes. In this case, I'm thinking you guys would probably have to go into villages and remote areas to find out, to get an idea of what is on the ground.
You're right. It's countrywide. It's a national census. Not as inclusive as detailed as the regular census, which is the household survey that SIB does. But it's unique to farmers. That's one. We know that our farmers are situated in strategic location. They're clustered. Most of our farmers at the Extension Service provide services to are clustered. They're in they're in what we call major producing areas. Typical example. So we know that the Cayo district is one of the major producers of vegetables, as well as Orange Raw. We know that if we go to the Cayo district, ideally you'd want to go to Valley of Peace, for example. And you go to Valley of Peace and you'd have a large percentage of farmers for the entire Cayo district. We also know that there's area named La Gracia. There's also other areas like Cristo Rey and San Antonio, where are the most typical Belizeans producing. When I say typical, I want to be careful, but it's more our Belizean producing, because there's some dynamics involved as well in when we look at farmers. So ideally, Dwight mentioned that the Extension Service and the Agriculture Department is located in each district. For us, the benefit is that we are returning to our work area. It's not like SIB would have do, where they would only know the area for a certain time period. We are in the area.
You're already
month,
working there,
every year. So for us, it's taking that rudimentary system that we spoke about, and we're now starting to formalize and get it to a level where we're doing exact data analysis and information management. And that is where Ms. Matus takes then on the responsibility of receiving that data, interpreting it, and providing a report that is valid, that is considered key, and that is considered valuable for determining our economic performance for the agriculture sector.
Are you also going to be mapping where the farms are?
That's the difference between our survey and that of
Previous,
SIB,
and
the
previous.
other ones too, because this time it's getting the farmer information and getting GPS coordinates of the farm. And that is where we can start using the new technologies available with GIS, that of climate resilience, and then the pest and disease surveillance management.
Now, how open are farmers to providing this information to the Ministry of Agriculture?
That is a question that it depends a lot on the time that you're conducting the census. There are a lot of other factors affecting small farmers or farmers on a whole generally, and so we have to compete with these factors that are influencing some transformation in the sector, in the agriculture sector. So we had to do a pilot census just to answer that question. So how open will the farmers be? How receptive will they be again to the Ministry of Agriculture and our personnel? So we know that we just got over a time period where climatic factors have been influencing farmers' performance. We hear about climate change and we equate the storms and the hurricanes with climate change. You could safely say that there's a relationship. So we know farmers are responding to those. Have they been getting assistance? How often have they been getting assistance? Is it technical assistance that they've been getting? Have they been seeing their partners in the sector? That is the Ministry of Agriculture, and so that has influenced their reception. And we've noticed through the 2 weeks, we did a 2 weeks pilot. We did it in Valley of Peace and Spanish Lookout, because we wanted to look at the two groups of producers: the large producers, which we know Spanish Lookout is, and the smaller producers, but a large aggregate of small producers, which is Valley of Peace. And we found that they were open. We also found that in having that discussion, visiting and having an open discussion, a one-to-one discussion, influenced that reception. We know that the highlights that we've been doing and the promotion that we've been doing, the initial promotion that we did, helped a lot, helped tremendously. So
did they have any hesitation in disclosing? I mean, like, business owners are careful about how much information they want to give out. They're supposed to disclose,
there is always hesitation until you explain clearly what is the objective at the census, and until you explain essentially what is the information you're getting. And we're not getting any information that is very sensitive. And we also have that confidentiality measure that we highlight.
So if I were a farmer and you guys approach me, I would want to think perhaps my initial question would be, how does this information benefit me as an individual farmer? Your response to that question?
Before, I think Ms. Matus could answer that question better, but getting back to the previous question, there is a initial skepticism.
Yeah.
Why you want this
Are you
data?
going to tell my competitors?
Which plays into
Yeah?
exactly
Are
the
you
question
going
that I just
to give
asked.
this information to income tax, this sort of thing?
Precisely.
Plus,
Yeah.
it's also a time when farmers download other issues that are non-related to our ministry, you know, land use and land occupancy and so forth. But we try not, you know, to stay away from those other issues. We try to focus more on the agriculture side. And also, it also depends on the relationship we have built with farmers over time. If our extension officers have done a great job and the farmers know them, it makes it easier for us.
Yeah.
But when you go into a community and you hear, well, I haven't seen the extension officer, well, you know it's going to be a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
But I think the other part of that question, I think Ms. Matus could answer that.
Benefit for the farmer.
What's the
The
benefit?
benefit.
Yeah.
Well, the first benefit, many of the farmers want an identification. First of all, I am a farmer. Whenever they're traveling from district to district, they're usually stopped by different agencies and they would like to have some kind of recognition. So we have the farmer and farm registry, which after that we give you an identification card. After that, the production side, we will constantly be monitoring production. The census is a one-off thing, just to get you registered, to find out who, where, when, and what you produce. But there will be continuous production surveys, which will ensure that there is a market for your commodity and that we don't have the challenges which we have had in the past.
Yeah.
The system will ensure that you are included, which is one of the challenges our farmers have, that when there's disasters such as drought and flood, when there's support given to some farmers and not all, but we don't know who all is. So it is a little bit unfair. So when you become part of the system, then you're included in decisions, in any support grants that the ministry gives. Actually, our whole programs will change to meet the needs of the farmers, that which we can only, the projects that we can only develop if we know exactly who you are and what you need. So the support comes in that sense, the programs, the grants, the ensuring that your product has a market. In times of disaster, there is a quick response. Pest and disease surveillance, when there's an outbreak of AVI with the chickens or a problem with some bug, the ministry is able to act quickly in specific areas. So it's all targeted to meet the needs of the farmer. We also have a component of the virtual marketing platform. It is something that we're intending to launch at a bigger forum later during the year. But the virtual marketing platform is basically linking farmers' production to a market. So you will be able to register, almost like a Craigslist. You'll be able to register to this platform if you are a legitimate farmer. That is.
So you have to be registered.
You have to be registered
and the census
first.
registers.
Right. The good thing about the census, it's while we are having a 1-year activity to register you, you can walk into the offices and still register throughout the year. So it's not like you can't continue.
So it's legitimizing their profession also
basically.
by giving them a registry and an identification.
So when you go into the virtual platform, you basically put up your production, what you produce, where you produce it, and then the buyer would then register also, and then be able to access the product real time.
Now, if you look at the importance of agriculture in this economy, I think it's one of the things that we speak about when we talk of the large industries. But farmers are essential in being able to not just work in these different platforms, but in producing for our daily consumption. How do you quantify their contribution? Because they're producing for sale, they're producing sometimes for their own communities, and they're producing for themselves. They also have their own part-time or seasonal employees that they take on as well. How do you factor that into your data collection? And also ensure that you are pushing additional messages like child labor, taking the kids out of school to help in the farms, which we know is something that is traditional. I don't know how common it is now. But how do you take the comprehensive information from the farmer as well?
You know, on the economic side, we are underestimating currently the contribution of agriculture to this economy.
I agree.
And we have been maybe making some very good guesstimates. But with this system in place now, we will have a better picture, a clearer picture of how important agriculture is. And I would be the first to say it's almost on par with tourism. And maybe that's where we need to make this statement, because we would probably need to get more funding, equity funding, because government now has instituted program budgeting, and everything has to be under a program. It's no longer just line item recurrent budget. You have to prove what you want.
What the money is going towards,
Yeah. So with that in mind, we have to plan much better. We have to, but knowing when we extract this information from the data now, we analyze it, we realize this is the area where we should put our programs for agriculture, and this is where we need our monies. So.
But the question is excellent. It's on point. But before you could even address all of these issues, you have to have the basic information. And that's been the Achilles heel for the government and for most people. Our system, many say, is rudimentary, but we've had a system, and the guesstimates were acceptable, and we were able to influence the designing of programs based on those guesstimates. We want it to be formalized, we want it to be precise, and we want to make the change as is. We want to address the immediate needs. And we've done it through the agriculture sector, because the assistance to the agriculture sector is the assistance mostly to the rural sector. And when you look at poverty alleviation, when you look at rural health and rural education, it's there. We are there, and we're working with these farmers who have a livelihood that ensures for their children to get that education. We talk about food security in the country, but then we forget sometimes about nutrition security or micronutrition security. And that is captured through these information systems. So we want to establish the platform. We want to establish the list frame. That then we partner with education, the Ministry of Health, the sectors. We partner with the sectors of health, the health sector, the education sector, and the tourism sector, to address some of these immediate needs.
So you'll be finding out who the farmer is, where they are, what they're producing, whether they sell it. Are you looking only at farmers that are producing for sale, or is it also subsistence farmers?
All farmers.
All farmers.
Once 30% of your yearly income is contributed due to agriculture production, then you're a farmer.
Are you also going to be looking at pesticide use?
Well, not really at this moment. The production surveys would do that right about now. It's just to get a basic indication of who is a farmer, where you are, what you produce,
and how much land you're using.
And how much land you're using.
But the way the census is designed, it's a 1-year period. The way we're designing the production, the capturing of the production information, or detailed production information, will be quarterly, right? So we will have then a district or districts already covered, so that we can go in and do production surveys immediately, and we capture that data.
So once you have the landscape, then you can go back in and get other detailed information.
But essentially, pesticide application, pest control and disease management will be captured after a time period.
Now, you did a pilot both in Spanish Lookout and in the Valley of Peace area to get a feel more or less of what to expect once the full initiative is launched, is rolled out. How serious, in terms of the feedback from some of these farmers, do they take such an undertaking seriously? Because some people might look at it, well, perhaps information is meaningless to what I'm trying to accomplish on a personal or on a community basis. What is the feedback you're getting?
So it's good. The feedback is good, but we could also say that our interpretation can be subjective at this point, because 2 weeks, to be realistic, it's only so much that you could capture. But at least we have a response that is over 80%. We have those non-respondents that is minimal, very minimal, and just for their sake, what we captured from this is that the conversation that they've had with us, and as Dwight had mentioned, you're trying to get that data, but we're using supervisors and extension officers who know these farmers. So the conversation is not just the census data, it's everything around the census data, that supports the census data. So we're looking at the transformation for land use change, for example, how farmers have gone through the years, either increasing their presence in a particular area of land, and know how they have clashed with other competing sectors for that land. I mean, agricultural land now, while some may say the production is increasing, that is just for one group in the sector. Small farmers are facing a lot of challenges. So sometimes you find that the seriousness is not entirely in that you're there to capture the data, but that you are there representing a transformation that has to come. And that is essentially what we're asking for, that we partner.
Just to add a little bit to that, Mr. Clifford, the fact that the future trend in agriculture, what is the future trend? It deals with clustering, grouping of farmers. It talks about traceability, packaging, marketing our products, standards. So if we go to the farmers and explain this, that you know what, this is not just get a head count. This is far beyond just counting you and giving you legitimacy. This is more about putting you in a position where your product will meet certain standards, because now we have special markets. We have high-end resorts. We have give me some other ones, processors. All these people require certain standards, certain specific fruit size and color and so forth. And if farmers understand that they could segment their product, then they could get better prices. So in the end, it is a betterment for them, a higher standard of living for them, and that we have to drive home, and that is kind of hard for them to see at this point. But
because it's more short term. It's selling the produce that you have now, and that brings me to another point, because how will this work, or how will this help to alleviate the problem that we've seen where import licenses are given to for products that are produced locally, and then our farmers are unable to sell their produce because you import the higher standard, or so people think, from somewhere else.
Well, usually the challenge is that we don't know who all the farmers are. And so we get data, because how we try to do it is to organize the farmers by groups, whether it be by a village or an association, a cooperative, etc. And then we get data from them directly as to how much they're intending to produce, when they planted, and so we can estimate harvest. But if we don't know that you're a farmer, if you're not listed as a farmer, then is when the challenge comes in. The Ministry of Agriculture, of course, supports local production, and during that time where we produce a commodity, we don't allow the importation. But like I say, if we don't know, then that's where the challenge comes in.
And it's in addition to it, it's not just knowing, but it's also getting that information on a timely
basis as well.
Because you're right, we do have influence in the importation permits, for example, but on importation amounts as well. But whenever we are aware that we have onion farmers, or we have potato farmers, or we have carrot and broccoli farmers with their produce available, then it influences the decision that has to be made. But we know it's ready, we know the time period that it'll be ready for or available for, and so we know that it's a closed window for importation.
That's an incentive there.
The system is so specific that it has, in the production system aspect of it, when you're doing the production surveys, that it has cycle for each commodity, when it's supposed to be harvested. And given that, we will have a more accurate picture so that we don't issue any import licenses during those times.
So the census is that participatory approach that we wanted. And then the system will allow farmers on their own to keep participating, and us as well to be present and to
they can
keep
log
reaching
into
out.
the system.
They will have certain access rights, and they'll be able, for example, the virtual market platform, that is the selling point, They control it. My colleague said it's like Craigslist. You
Yeah.
control what you want to purchase and where you want to sell or who
Yeah.
you want to purchase from.
And we also have the mobile app.
And we have
Yeah, Miss
Which
Matus.
also displays the prices for the commodities, so farmers will be able to fairly price their commodities, and also they would be able to know what is the fair price in the market, so that they don't undersell per se.
So I don't want to typecast or anything like that, but do you find that, for instance, these farmers are tech savvy in terms of applying this platform as you've described it? Do you find that these men and women who are out there, hands in the soil, getting things done, are the ones who would be the drivers behind this?
You'll be surprised. They are very tech savvy. They use their cell phones as much as we do smartphones. Yeah, correct. And if they don't, they have young children who are in high school already, junior colleges, and therefore they make use of the resources they have.
And in addition, these are people who depend on the sale of their produce to survive. They don't have an 8 to 5. So the means that they get that produce to our market is sometimes incredible, the way they get that. And they're very resilient. Our farmers are very resilient. And we found that when they've clustered themselves into cooperative groups or into associations, we find that where they have delegated that responsibility to one who is very tech savvy and who is very understanding of the market on the domestic level as well on regional level. So, it's incredible sometimes.
So how do farmers participate in the census?
So, the way we're doing it this time is that we are able to reach to the farmer's door, to their household, as well as we allow them to visit the office. But when they visit the office, we still have to do validation because we want to GPS the farm, for example, and you can only do that by visiting the area with accuracy, which is like ground truthing, no? So how we participate, we'll be in every district for a time period. We start off in the Cayo district for the month of August, maybe a month and a half in the Cayo district, and then we move on to Belize district, Crozal and Orange Rock, Stan Creek and Toledo.
So it's a year-long cycle.
It's going to be a year-long cycle, and that helps us a lot in that it's this core group of census individuals visiting each district. We'll be learning lessons from carrying over the lessons and then improving on our methodology and technique, but the standards won't change. It's the same and the consistency will remain the same. So that we have validated
for
data.
any farmer who hears of the census and is still a bit skeptical, why do you want my information? How, why am I going to bring you to my farm and GPS it as well? What would you say to them?
So the information will be very confidential. That's the first thing. When we do produce information, it'll be in an aggregated form. We don't have any right, and we're glad we don't, to provide information on an individual basis. If a farmer wants his or her individual information to be presented, they can do that on their own. The system is designed to just capture that data, to know who you are, to give you that opportunity to improve on the relationship that we have already ongoing, to get the new producers, and then to give an exact or as precise as possible information on what is being produced in the sector. Farmers shouldn't be afraid. Feel free to communicate. We have a contact number, as well as offices in each district where they can reach out. And we will be in the communities as well. We are in the communities through the Extension Service and the cooperative department.
It's also to tell farmers that this system is for them. This is not for the Ministry of Agriculture. We just hosts. And very secured. It is stored at the CETO office in Belmopan. It's stored virtually and as well as physically by physical servers, so we have redundancy. It was built by a local consulting team, KYN in Corozal, a locally built system. So it's just, I guess I'm running out of words here. But
so clearly it is a system, a platform that data will be captured and stored.
They'll be able
The
to tap
census
into
is
it.
Feeding it. Farmers can feed that information system, and we'll be managing that system for a while.
All the data is for them, basically, so that we
It's
start
the market data.
projecting and being able to find markets for their products.
And if
Ownership,
you know
that's
where
what I
they
was
are
trying
and
to
what
say.
they're doing, you can
Ownership.
help them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, basically that's
All right.
in a nutshell.
Thank you so much for coming in, and best of luck with your
Thank you.
census.
Thank you very much for having us, and we would like to continue the dialogue as well through your production system.
All right.
Thank you so much.
We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by representatives of the Department of Youth Services, so stay tuned.